Okay, so seems we are live now. So hello everyone. Here we are for another Avocado release meeting. Actually, a public call for the next Avocado release. We are releasing the 67 version of Avocado, and uh, right now we are going to pass through the cards that or the tasks that we have done in this last sprint, and also comment a little bit about the plannings and what we are planning for the next releases, next releases of Avocado as well. So right now I am starting to share my screen with you. Just a second. Uh, Here, can you see my screen? Okay,
Yes.
right. So this is the board for our last sprint. This is the column with the done tasks or done cards that we already finished. We're going firstly, as I said, first pass through these cards, and after that we are going to see the planning ones. So we're starting with this one, the top one. Done task is the Avocado utils archive, add uncompress if necessary. That's a card that was done by Kleber. And Kleber, do you have any comments about that? Or I can pass through all
Yeah,
those cards?
yeah. Just a quick comment. That is a way for you if you're using a gzip file which is not a tarball. You can use that now to check if that is an archive, and you can also uncompress pure gzip files which are not tarballs. That was what that card is about.
Oh, great, thank you. The next one is a card from Jan. That's the newest contributor for Avocado. And actually, this card is about the creation of a new repository on Avocado organization. I'm gonna just open for you guys see. There is this new repository called CIT-NNG. That's the repository that has the code of the next generation of CIT plugin that Jan mostly is working on that. We create this new repository so we can start work on the new code, new version of the plugin, improve things, refactoring, and as soon as we get a proper version of this new plugin, we plan to integrate to Avocado source tree.
So I don't see any setup POI nor make file. Can it be like edit to use make link to incorporate it, or do you plan anything like that?
Yeah. Yes, I think we can definitely do that. Pull request welcome.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious how am I how am I supposed to test it, or?
Yeah, and you can go ahead and explain it.
Yeah, for now it's working like there is a file, there is a folder with some files for testing it, and it has there is just a main function which you can run it. It don't have any setup or something like that for now. So that's it.
Okay. So do you plan to like show it next sprint, like how to set up and run it, or?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
I mean, maybe next sprint when you have the setup UI or something like that. If people are interested, because yeah, it's a good plugin.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. But no problem.
Yeah. So one thing that I told Jan is that whenever he thinks of tasks, he can reflect that on the Trello board so we can track. And this is actually a very good small task, which is Possibly a lot of copy and paste of the original plugin setup.py. And even though we added some Travis setup to just run inspect and that kind of thing, unit tests should follow. So it would be nice to have the setup and the unit test and everything. So just as like some tips from the community about your next steps there, yeah.
Okay, thanks. I will do that, no problem.
Cool.
Caio?
Yeah, so just moving forward, Kleber already did some contributions for this new repository, some basic continuous integration tasks or configurations, like link checks, style checks, and stuff like that. So now we already have new things to do, like setup.py, a better README. That's also a good thing. Put some information on README so people can see how to run the plugin or how to test, what's different from the current plugin. All those informations are interesting one to keep in README. And well, if anyone feels interested, just take a look on this new version. Moving on, we have some tasks from Kleber. First one here is an improvement actually on our scripts, actually in the make file, and also the script that runs all the checks on Avocado. Some improvements on Python detection. So if someone is running Python 3 or Python 2 or already have Python available, this now has a better Python detection. With Python 3 being the first one to try, right, Kleber? Just correct me if I'm wrong. So if someone has Python 3 available, this will be the choice for running all detections on Avocado. Right, moving to the next one. This one is a contribution that started with another guy, the Pavogan, if I'm not wrong, and Kleber helped with the progress with this pull request. Kleber, do you have comments about this one?
It's just an in-between commit or 2 or 3 commits between the original contributor commits, so that we deprecate the interface that was dropped on his series, like for the sake of compatibility. And we have another card to track that, so that in 2 releases we should be dropping the deprecation. So if people are using LVU2s on their own tests, they should pay attention to that, because the interface hopefully did not change with those changes. We paid attention to it, but it will change in the next 2 releases. So that's a heads up.
Cool, thank you, Kleber. The next one is one issue related with Travis. Travis changed the way that the way that the tests are run in Travis environment. If I'm not wrong, before that they was running on containers, and after this change, they start to use virtual machines to run the job builds, and we need to take some. Actually, we need to do some adjustments on Avocado Travis configuration so we can run successfully again. Especially the sudo configuration. Kleber, do you have any important comments here? Or
yeah, so the first thing is we just dropped the sudo configuration from our own Travis YAML file, simply because it's not respected anymore. The new workers from Travis, which we rely on, are always going to use VMs and have sudo enabled. So it makes no sense to keep that. And what we found out with those changes is that because most of us would either run the test as non-privileged users or as fully privileged users instead of regular users with sudo enabled. There were pieces of code in the same that were touched by the same tests, that some of them had sudo equals true and some of them did not have. So there was some breakage that was revealed that, and it looks like Lukash is like probably the bravest among us that runs them as fully privileged users.
Don't tell it out loud.
Okay. And the thing is, I think we only saw breakages because there were previous work on the partitions, LVU choose, I think disk module as well, that might have enabled more tests to run by default. So there is kind of a intersection there between some self-tests that touch on disks, partitions, and that kind of thing, which requires super privileges, and then the change in Travis itself. So those two things happen more or less around the same time. So there is some overlap.
Cool. So I think we can move for the next one. Xunit output should give int about the job result directory. It was a card done by Lukash, a task done by Lukash. Lukash, do you have any comments about that? I can open the screenshot to illustrate what was done.
Yeah, I mean, basically, just you can show the picture, but basically, it's about the availability of the job ID inside the XUnit results, which is also like importable into Jenkins. So in Jenkins, you can easily distinguish between different job results if you combine multiple XUnit results in within a single job, for example.
Cool. Yes. Now we have this information here about the job itself available to Jenkins. Great. Moving for the next one. Also, Kleber, touching the logical volume model. It's kind of related with the previous one, right, Kleber?
Yeah. So basically, I'm assigned to that, but I'm not the author. It was an external contribution. The original author of the module, even back to the auto test days, he sent a bunch of improvements. Some had to do with optionally skipping the use of RAM disks. So we would not require the creation of RAM disks. These days, SSDs are quite common, so that makes sense. Also, some improvements with regards to creation of thing provisioning, logical volumes. So a whole bunch of improvements that he had and he contributed back. I just went through them, I tested, reviewed them, and in the process there were fixes on a bunch of other related modules like you choose partitions, you choose disks, and possibly some other.
Cool. And also here we have 3 cards kind of related regarding the improvements on self-tests, Avocado self-tests, that was also discovered because the tests that Kleber was running during the logical volume implementation. So there are 3 cards here. Kleber, do you have?
Yeah, they're absolutely all related, and just like improvements that we had to do, and I'm kind of glad we did. I think they look better. But yeah, they were all kind of motivated by that original LV pull request and also the Travis changes.
Great. The next one is the drop use of a PyStash. PyStash was a library that we were using for HTML output generation. PyStash is done is used like for template and building, template definition, HTML template definition and building. And PyStash is right now a project that's not really being maintained anymore. And also PyStash has a problem that the lib won't install on Python higher than 3.7. So since we want to keep the plugin, HTML plugin, active and being developed, we decided to replace PyStash for another library that, in this case, we use Jinja, template engine, that is much more active in development, especially because it's a library used by Flask project that's also really active, and Jinja seemed a good choice for us. So this task here only replaced the PyStash with some improvements on template definitions on the HTML plugin, and now we have pretty much the same thing, the same output, but with a better library that's much more maintained. We don't have any feature new here, but it was a good task to do. And moving on, we have here a fix, because after I implemented the PyStash, the drop use of PyStash, implemented the template engine with Jinja, we also need to fix the RPM generation, or just fix the script to use the Jinja package to build the Avocado, actually the Avocado HTML plugin RPM. So it was
there was actually just as a comment, as add-on comment, it was both the spec file, but it was also a version-specific API that we were using, and this is just like natural part of having to rely on different versions of the same software. So in the pure Python world, you just describe your requirements, and they should be fulfilled when you install the packages. But things were kind of the other way around in RPMs. You have to adapt your code to the common denominator of packages available across all the distros. So this is just like one of those examples. In the EL7 package of Jinja, one of the utility APIs, the autoscape thing, was missing. So we can just say that we always want to autoscape our content, since we always create HTML, which by definition, it's a good thing to have the escape characters working for us, the escaping methods working for us.
Yeah, that's all, really. Okay, so I think we can move. The next one is also a contribution done by an external contributor. I just continued the original patch that was stopped for a while. This one specific just adds a new function to the utils gen.io module that check a pattern inside a file. So we can now inform a path for a file and a pattern, and the function just return if this pattern can or cannot be found inside the file. And the other one was a new, actually two new functions to Avocado utils disk module. This change introduced two new functions to the module, two new utilitary functions to module. The first one is get available file systems that return all available file system type in the running kernel. And the second one is the get file system type that returns the file system type for a specific mount point that is passed for functions. Those two new functions again was started by Praveen. If I'm not spelling wrong your name, their name is an external contributor, and I just finished with some adjustments and the merge itself. Besides that, we also have a new feature or a new way to use a feature that we already have. That's the tag feature. Kleber done that. Kleber, do you want to comment something about that? I can open the document.
Yeah. So you can. I think I can give like a 30-second, hopefully, example demo on how to use that.
Yes, of course.
So this is like a real world example. Like most Avocado features, we're trying to map to new features. We're trying to map to real use cases. And basically, we had a situation in QEMU tests that are using Avocado in which some tests would be tagged in a specific way, like a hardware target architecture specific way, while other tests would not be hardware specific. So with flat tags, the original mechanism that we had, if we tagged something like arch something, so specific to one given architecture, we would have to tag everything else as architecture any, so they would be hardware unspecific, and that would mean a lot of boilerplate code in other tests. But with this new way to use tags, we can have something like this. So we have tests that are architecture specific, like this one downloads an x86 kernel, and at the same time we can have, so this is basically the same thing. We have another test which is architecture specific to MIPS because it downloads a MIPS kernel and it runs a MIPS kernel. On the other hand, we have tests which are not tagged with Arch at all, like version. It should be able to run on any architecture, any target architecture. So what happened before this change is that we would, if we wanted to filter by architecture, a test like this would have to include something like Arch any, and we would have to include that tag whenever we were filtering tests. With this change, we now understand that there is a structure to those tags, and we can do something like, so if we list everything, of course we'll see all the tests, and if we filter by a specific architecture, we'll see that. And if we say something like, so I do not have capabilities beyond running tests for x86, 64, and the tests that run on any other architecture, I can do something like filter by tags, include empty key. So tags that do not have an arch should always be included. So you can see that the other tests are included, but the MIPS test, which is not specific to this architecture, is not included. So this is the use case that we solve. So we don't have to tag all tests for a mission. So that's basically it, what this feature is about.
Great. Also, there is a new section here in the documentation about it, if anyone want to take a look. Also, I think it's important to say that if you use the tags feature not intended for you, you can keep using it as you are used to.
Yeah, there should be no behavior changes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, moving for the next one that was done. It's a Lukács card. Allow waiting for all PID to die in process queue, process tree. Lukács, do you have comments about that?
Well, basically, the process kill process tree is a nice feature to send a signal to like the process tree, like all of the children of the PID you have, and most commonly it's used to kill the process. And I noticed that when you kill list of processes, or like all of the children, when you kill the parent, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the children really died, even when you send the kill. And in my testing, it was an issue. So basically, what this does is it sends the signal to all of the pits, and it remembers the pit, and in the end waits for all the pits to die, or it raises an exception.
Cool.
Again, it's optional, so you don't have to use it.
Right.
And for example, don't use it in case the pit is just 6 top or whatever, because you'll wait for infinity.
Yeah. So the last one here is actually an improvement on network export free function. What's the difference, or what is improved here, Lukas?
Yeah, this one is an interesting and fairly hard to come up with. The problem was that, again, sometimes I got, okay, the port is already used, which is expected because when you check a free port and somewhere else, presumably later, you try to assign it, it can happen that the system
there's no lock
gives
for
this
that, right?
port to some other party. So we just took it as granted. Okay, it happens, but it became increasingly a problem. And the problem was that we only are checking TCP connections on localhost in case we use localhost. But there is not just local. When you try to bind, for example, to 0.0.0.0, it means that you want all the local interfaces, not just the 127.0.0.1, but also, like, for example, 192.168.122.1, etc. So one of the improvements is to really use all of the interfaces. Second improvement was to not to use only TCP but also use UDP, because you can't be like two programs with UDP connections can't listen at the same time, and this is a generic library. We don't know whether people will use TCP or UDP. And last improvement is IPv4 versus IPv6, because again, if you listen on local interface, it doesn't tell you nothing about the 1 versus 127.0.0.1. So yeah, we edit at least those two. It's not the complete list of protocols or families. So if you happen to have some issues, send patches like at your favorite interfaces. But I think this covers really most of them.
Cool. Thank you, Lukas.
And I mean, again, there is no locking, so when we finish, other process can take the port between your other library. So, for example, in my testing previous week, I got one failure like that the port was occupied, even though is port free set it is free. So it can happen, but it's better than before, which was 25 or 30 failed cases because of that. And it was mainly the IPv6 versus IPv4 in my case.
And I think there's no easy solution for that unless you resort to using network namespaces or something like that.
No, I mean the proper thing is to use socket and don't set any fixed port, because the operating system will provide you a free port for you. That's the correct
That's an
way.
assignment, yeah.
But obviously,
but sometimes it's either that or communicate like you acquire and then you communicate your port number to the other component. So you're right.
Okay, so that's pretty much what we have done in the last sprint, and this is what will be in the next release, the new things in the next release. I think that now we can move for the planning and expectations for the next release. The next release will be the 68, and is planned to be the next sprint is planned to be a sprint with at least 4 weeks. So the next release will be only the next year. And what before we start to I think we don't need to tell each or talk about each card, right? I don't know. I can remember this part, but
yeah, we don't have to go over everything. It's more of a, let's give a sense of what we're planning to achieve.
sure.
And I
So
think it's also a good idea to just maybe just show briefly the work in progress, and because that
yeah,
is like things we didn't finish, but we are going to pick up like next sprint.
sure. So the things that is in progress right now and will keep being worked for the next release are those. And starting from bottom to up here, the first one is actually a check or verification about the status of Fedora USCI for Avocado packages. I think Kleber can tell a little bit more about the idea and the importance of that. Kleber?
Yeah, it's an upstream integration environment, so package integration after packages for Fedora builds. They are tested with other builds. We added some tests there, and we just have to check if the tests are actually running or not, because when we added, not all packages were being subjected to those tests. That's all.
Okay, so we are going to keep working on that. And also the next one is this. That's a card that has already pull request opened, just waiting for review. Kleber are working on the review. I don't know
Yeah,
if any.
so most of the commits were already merged, even on previous
Yeah.
release. There are few bits, I think 2 or 3 commits left, and it's on my plate to actually go through them and review. So this is top priority for the next next sprint.
Yeah. And the last 2 cards here is related with Avocado VT. Lukasz, do you have comments about that?
I think there are no updates since previous release, unfortunately.
Okay. Right. So moving to the sprint backlog, here we have some bugs actually in the higher priority for the next sprint. Some of them are new ones that we discovered or just appeared in the last sprint. Some others are a little bit older, but we are planning to solve most of them for the next release for sure. And that is our priority, our higher priority for the next release, the fix most of those things that's opened.
Yeah,
And also, come on.
go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that we also have not only bugs, but some other tests here, not necessarily related with bugs, that some other work that we want to. And I was just trying to start talk about this Python 3 support. I don't know if you have anything different to talk about.
I think given that we are talking about what we plan to do for the next sprint, I think it's a good opportunity to bring the subject of the LTS release. So
Oh, yeah.
we are about due to our original planning of releasing a new LTS release. So if you look at the backlog, the the board that we have right now for the next sprint. It's mostly bug fixes, because what we want to do is primarily have the 2 next sprints as in stabilization releases, and bring the pending features that already been worked on and smaller features that we may need for our own work to be added, so that they would be available and should be used for a longer period of time, which is the scope of the LTS. But after those 2 cycles, what we intend to do is to just be more liberal with changes, possibly bring a lot of backward incompatibility after the LTS is released. And there are things such as the Python version that we will be willing to support, or for how long we will stretch our efforts to support older versions, both for Python 3 older versions and for Python 2 itself. We'll probably have to make some concessions there. So if we feel that we'll need, again, after the LTS release, to say stop supporting Python 3.4, stop supporting Python 2.7, that would be the time to do it. And it's important to notice that the Python clock, it's running down. Like, we have a year and 17 days until Python 2 is completely deprecated upstream. It's completely it dies completely for when it comes to support. So when we release an LTS release, which we hope is going to happen early in January, we will still support it for one period of time that's even larger than Python 2 itself. So I don't think we'll fall short of Python 2 compatibility if we decide to do that after LTS. But yes, I guess the message is that we're focused on bug fixes, stabilization, so that we can, within 2 new releases, come up with the LTS. So the next, it's kind of a pre-LTS, and the next release will be a hard pre-LTS with bugs only. So this is also a call out. So if people out there want to have their features on an LTS release, they should act fast, send their contributions quickly, so that we can integrate them now, and then use the next sprint as mostly, or if not only, a bug fix release. That's it.
Nice. For sure, there's a task here about the communication, about those things that Kleber have already said. That's communication not only about the Python 3 support, but also the next LTS release and the plans for the next release for Avocado. Probably some email will be sent for the Avocado mailing list as well. So just make sure that if you have any concern or have anything else that you want to bring to us, just respond email or ping us on IRC. And I think that's it for the call. Actually, I have to update the board, right? We usually do it
Yes.
now.
So you can archive Dawn66, create a new one for Dawn67. Oh, I mean for Dawn68.
Okay, and move that for this position and rename those.
So Jan, it would be natural, if you're willing to do it, to have this release for you, and that means you get to name the release. Feel free if you think that's going to be a problem because of your work hours or other responsibilities. Also, let us know, and we can rearrange it. But it's a nice opportunity to do what Caio is doing now.
Yeah, I know that. Thanks for that, but I think for now it's not possible for me to do everything of this because I have some finishing in my class, and so I think that I don't have, I don't will, that I won't have enough hours
That's fine.
for that. So if anyone can do that, it will be better.
If you want to help, I can take that. Even though I'll be away for most of it, I'll be back before the end of the sprint, so I can definitely take that. But if anybody, and you included, Jan, if you want to name the release, please feel free to. Whoever comes first with the name, please feel free. And it's just a matter of putting the release name inside the parentheses and creating a card giving information about why you chose that. Is it a movie, a picture, or a movie, or a book, or a song, whatever, and just give some context.
Yeah. So just a quick comment about the next release. We are just finishing to running the manual tests. I'm actually running those. We already generated the new RPMs that is being tested, and we also have already done some tasks to next release. But probably the RPMs will be generated and published for real probably later today. Still today, Kleber are going to release it and send the mails and everything that need to be done. Right, Kleber?
Yeah, one thing that I suggest is to break one of those items in the checklist. There is Clever update package on pip, and for some reason, I mean, it's one of those things that it's not easy to tell. I cannot trigger the Docker image rebuild, but Lukash can. So I think we can split that.
Okay.
Create a new one and just make sure that we have to ping.
Just ping me when it's ready, and I'll do that.
Okay, so it's fixed now. And anything else, guys? That I don't know if I forgot something. No, so I'm trying to stop to share my screen. Okay, so I stopped share my screen. So I think that's it for this call. Hope you enjoyed the new version of Avocado. If you have any again, remembering if you have any concern about the next releases and the Python 3 support and the next LTS release that is going to be available next January, just talk to us by mailing list or RC channel. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you guys. See you next time.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.